Welcome to the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast. I'm your host, Forrest Kelly. From the seed to the glass, wine has a past. Our aim at the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast is to look for adventure at wineries around the globe. After all, grape minds think alike. Let's start the adventure. Our featured winery is... In this episode, we head to the state where the first ever ice cream sundae was served in 1881. It's home to my favorite architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. Nearly all of the ginseng grown in the United States and about 10% of the world's supply comes from this state. At one time, Steve Miller called this state home.
My name is Philippe Cocorn. I am the owner with my wife Julie, the winemaker and the president of Wollersheim Winery Inc. And I've been in America for 38 years.
And you still have the accent there heavily, and I don't even hear the Wisconsin accent.
No, not quite. But you know what? All the ladies tell me it's so super sexy. So.
And you still listen to the ladies?
Oh, yeah.
Where in France do you originate from?
So I grew up in Beaujolais. I am a 13th generation winemaker. Both sides of my family been growing grapes and making wine since somewhere around 1600.
Well, that's a pretty good background. That's solid.
Yeah, it's in my blood. Sometimes I joke around that I have more wine than blood running through my veins.
And that would make sense, as that wine-growing region in France, Beaujolais, has over 4,000 vineyards.
Growing up in Beaujolais, both of my uncles had wineries. My grandfather worked with them. My father was a vineyard consultant his entire life. So I was in the vineyard since I can remember, going to the winery, tasting wine, putting bottle on the bottling line when I was 8 years old, picking weeds, picking brush, picking grapes, driving the tractor with my uncles. I took a liking into that. I went to school for winemaking, wine marketing, Bachelor of Science from Mâcon winemaking school in South Burgundy. And then, fresh out of school, my childhood dream was to come to America. So I applied to many different ways, and I ended up coming with Future Farmers of America in 1984. And my father-in-law picked up my name on a listing of intern wanting to come to the U.S., and that's how I ended up here in Wisconsin.
So then that gets you to America, and then that was 84, so the winery had already been established.
Yes, the winery was, let's call it a small place. We were doing 8,000 gallons, 30-some thousand bottles. Some was good, some was okay. Financially difficult, struggling, lack of cash flow. In the meantime, as a good Frenchman, I fell in love with the owner's daughter. Julie, my wife, was still in college in marketing and business at UW-Madison. And then she joined the family business. We were raising a couple of kids. So financially, it was very difficult.
Okay, so in 1972, your in-laws bought the winery. Tell me a little bit about that.
Bob and Joanne Wollersheim, both native of Wisconsin. My father-in-law was an electrical engineer. He put himself through college, electrical motor rewinding. My mother-in-law worked at different banks while my father-in-law was studying, and he ended up teaching electrical engineering at UW-Madison. I ended up to work for Base Science Center. Tired of the high-tech world, he was a avid home winemaker, backyard grape grower, knew of this historic winery and got interested in purchasing the place. And he put a business plan together, talked to the local bank with whom we still bank, bought the property in 1972. The property had been a winery since 1860s, closed down at the Prohibition, became a Wisconsin farm, and then 1972, my in-laws bought the place, restarted everything from scratch without a dime in their pocket.
In part 2 of our interview with Philippe, owner and winemaker of Wollersheim Winery in Prairie du Sac, Wisconsin, we learn of a very important discovery.
In 1988, I created a wine called Prairie.
Thank you for listening. I'm Forrest Kelly. This episode of the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast was produced by iHiza. If you like the show, please tell your friends and pets and subscribe. Until next time, pour the wine and ponder your next adventure.
This is Doug Vincent with the podcast Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories. In 1956, I contracted polio. Thanks to my loving parents, I've lived a full, rich life over the past 67 years. Join me as I share my journey and uncover inspiring stories of resilience. This podcast is a platform for survivors of disability and those who champion services for the disabled community. Tune in on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Let's walk and roll together on this incredible journey of strength and empowerment.